Hey guys, how are you? Tom McKeown at www.yourtruechange.com. Thanks for joining me. Today we're going to talk about why most people hate or dislike their jobs, their current careers, whether they're full-time jobs, whether they're temporary, part-time, full-time, whatever. You all seen it, numerous studies over and over and over again that the vast majority of Americans and North Americans do not enjoy what they do for a living. And we hear so much different feedback about that, right? And we hear so many so-called gurus and experts and everything talk about exactly why they don't like their jobs. And you hear stuff um, well, people aren't, following their passion, or people aren't trying hard enough, or people are not, giving it their all. And you hear all this kind of, same old fluff over and over again, right? Where you just feel like rolling your eyes and you say, "Come on now, give me something real. Give me a real reason why I most likely don't like my job." And of course, if you're watching this, if it's really kind of an over 75 or 80% number of people that don't like their jobs, as we always hear, then chances are 3 out of every 4 of you, or 4 out of every 5 of you that are going to be watching this are not going to like your job, right? And what I've done is, you know, I've decided to put together a very basic, comprehensive analysis that gets a little bit more nitty-gritty as opposed to most of the so-called experts and gurus out there, to explain to you exactly why most people don't like what it is that they do for a living, but without getting too much substance, right? So I want to give you a full sandwich, and I want to give you some peanut butter and jelly, and maybe add a little bit of fluffernutter in there, and but I don't want to add in 17,000 extra ingredients and bore the hell out of you. So I want you to understand. And here's really what it comes down to, right? And pardon for the lighting here, but basically, this chart right here tells you exactly why the vast majority of people do not like what it is that they do. Let's start off here. So, in all jobs, okay, meaning all employment functions, all types of businesses, anything that could ever be possibly classified or encompassed by the economy in any country in the history of the world, you have three things, and three things only, right? So it doesn't matter what industry you're in, what your expertise is in, what you have a PhD or master's or bachelor's or a high school diploma in. Every one of you falls into three categories. You either make something, okay? You either support something, or you sell something. You do one of those three things and one of those three things only. So now, by far, the best position, the people who are the happiest, are the people way over here, the people that make stuff, right? Now, this isn't just the people that invent stuff and get patents. They're certainly included in the make category, but it's also people that are providing a service or a product that they themselves are creating, right? So you don't just simply have to go and invent a new car or a new type of peanut butter, but you can also be someone who, let's say, is a lawyer or a consultant or a coach that goes out there and decides to create their own practice. They would be considered in the making category. Okay, so the unfortunate thing is that these are less than 3% of people. Okay, so less than 3% of people are actually making a product or service to provide to the masses and the rest of society, right? Now, why are these people the happiest, and why is it best to be one of the makers per se? Well, it's really easy. Number one, first and foremost, is they make profits and not wages. Okay. Number two is that they pay less taxes. They pay roughly about half the amount of taxes if you live here in the United States. And number three is they also get to dictate their own schedule and lifestyle, right? So, if they want to say, okay, you know what, I'm going to work my absolute ass off this week, and I'm going to take it easy next week, and maybe on Tuesday at 2 o'clock in the afternoon I can go see a movie, or I can go on my yacht, right? All depending on where you are in your career and in your financial stats. But that's what makers can do, and that's why they're by far the happiest. The unfortunate thing now, as I said, is that they're under 3% of the workforce, right? Now, let's skip this middle part right here, and let's go all the way over here to sell, okay? You then have people who sell. And people that sell are great because, they don't have the freedom or the flexibility, and they don't they that makers do. They also have to pay a lot more taxes than makers do. But the reality is that their schedule and their way of getting paid and their terms are not as rigid as is middle category right here, which we'll get to in a moment, right? So you're getting a base salary, or you're not getting a base salary, but you can ultimately control to an extent how much money you make, right? So because of that, you have an incentive to work really, really, really hard, right? So that's where you have, bankers, real estate agents, you know, insurance agents, and other types of salespeople that are really working hard to make as much money as possible. And in most cases, there's no cap as to how much money they can make. So they're forced to work very, very hard. They can make as much money as possible, and it's the ultimate almighty dollar that dictates them forming habits and them doing what they need to do to be successful. So it's good, and it's much better than this middle category here because you can control to an extent how much income you make. Okay. And you don't have the rigidity and you don't have the inflexibility of this middle category here. And on top of that, you're also training. When you're in sales, you're also trained to become a maker. If you're a seller, you're trained to become a maker. Most makers at one point were sellers, right? This doesn't just mean that you're a salesperson, okay? It means that anybody that's in some sort of client or person-facing role, okay, that's what most executives and most CEOs and most people in that position do. They are in a role where they are bringing in new business, right? If you're a maker, chances are you have some sort of experience selling. So if you're a seller, you're one step closer, and you're preparing yourself and training yourself to being a maker. And yes, it is true that you do have the security of the corporate structure, which is also good, but then again, you don't have any flexibility, and of course you can't control your profits or your schedule. So you're overall happy, but you're not as happy as you are here. And that's about 15% of the population, right? Now let's get to who the majority of us are. And, unfortunately, the numbers by the Department of Labor say that 82% of us are in this category. And I think this is pretty much why the vast majority of us don't like our jobs and don't enjoy what we do. 82% of us are in some sort of support function, okay? It doesn't matter what the industry is, what the job function is, what country you're in, what time period you're living in. Support functions all have a lot of the same obstacles and same problems with getting people toward long-term happiness and long-term satisfaction out of your career. It's by far the most rigid, right? You can't create your flexible. You have to follow a set guideline of rules on scheduling as far as how you act, how you operate, etc. Okay? You have to pay by far the most taxes. You don't operate on your terms, and you certainly don't control, your work environment, who you work with, and what you do. Okay. The best part about it, or the two best parts about support, is one, financial security, and two, you do have some limited upward mobility. You might get a promotion or a raise here and there, but the reality is you're never going to go really a much higher percentage of where you are now in the long term. And with time, your obligations and your demands on your finances are only going to increase, and that's really going to lead to, the needle not really moving that much, as if you were either, a maker or a seller, right? So whether you work for the government, whether you're in middle management or lower management, whether you're, a clerk, whether you're a researcher, whether you're doing something that has nothing to do with bringing in new business or generating new ideas or generating new clients in any way, in any capacity, then you're in this part right here. And you're not, and it's by far the most rigid, right? And you see, this part, support functions, go against human nature. Human beings were not made to nurture the same craft long term for many, many years and be doing the same thing. Otherwise, it gets dull, it gets boring, it sucks the energy, and it has very little motivation. And that's why the vast majority of people don't like their jobs, because most people work in this column right here, the support column. And like I said, don't worry about the industry. If you come to me and say, well, Tom, I work in X or Y, well, unless you're either making something or selling something or having something to do with that, then you are in this column right here, which is why you are not going to be happy with what you do. Now, I'm not saying that all people in support are unhappy. I'm saying that the vast majority are, though, and I'm saying even if you have a temporary period where you might get kind of happy with what you do, you might get a promotion, you might get some compliments, you might have a good team. Chances are it's not going to last long. The other part of it too is job security, and by far and out, this column right here has the least amount of job security out of any of the three, right? If you're a maker, chances are you can make more stuff, and not only that, but you're making quite a bit of money. You're getting profits and not wages, and chances are you'll be okay. If you're a seller, even though you're getting wages, the reality is it's a heck of a lot harder to outsource a very good salesperson than it is somebody who's in research or who's in middle management or who performs some sort of function that some company can hire somebody else at a much lower wage to do. So you're in the support category faced with getting wages not profits, paying a lot more taxes, having very high restrictions and rigidity on your career and your schedule, okay, being enforced to perform the same tasks and behaviors long term over and over again, which goes against human nature, and then on top of that, you by far have the worst job security. So this right here is it, people. This is the real reason why most people hate their jobs. You don't long term want to be in the support function. You want to either be a maker or you want to be a seller. That is how you are going to ultimately succeed. Okay, so that is the main reason why the vast majority of people hate their jobs or dislike their jobs, I should say. Don't want to use so strong words. If you'd like to talk to me about that video or tell me about your theories and what you think, I'm definitely open to hearing your comments, and I want to see what you have to say about that. I hope you don't take this personally against your job if you're in that 82%. I'm just telling you my thoughts and my opinions based on my own studies and my own findings, and how I can help you really break down some very complicated concepts and things into a very simple way. So I thank you once again, Tom McKeown at www.yourtruechange.com. Until next time, have a great Veterans Day week.